By the 4th century, whispers suggested the Roman Empire was already faltering, but was its military genuinely crumbling, or merely undergoing a profound transformation? To unravel this mystery, we'll plunge into the late Roman army, scrutinizing the evolution of their weaponry, strategies, and structure, culminating in a detailed reconstruction of a true Roman province's defenses, forts, and human resources. And so, let the journey begin. A hallmark of the Roman army lay in its remarkable capacity to evolve and adjust across centuries, confronting emerging dangers and responding to the empire's ever-changing strategic landscape. The Principate's renowned professional military reached its zenith in the 2nd century, comprising 2 distinct divisions of warriors. These comprised, naturally, the formidable 5,000-strong citizen legions, formed by dependable heavy infantry, alongside smaller, 500 or 1,000-strong non-citizen auxiliary contingents, made up of diverse infantry and cavalry. Furthermore, Rome occasionally enlisted allied irregular forces, designated as numeri. Yet, despite this military structure's formidable success and seeming invincibility for its era, even it was compelled to evolve and adjust as the empire confronted novel adversities, particularly the devastating succession of plagues. Concurrent civil wars and relentless invasions plagued nearly the entire 3rd century, diverting the army from vital frontier zones, critically undermining their defenses, and thus fueling an escalating, seemingly endless cycle of further incursions. In numerous respects, this profound crisis ought to have spelled the demise of the Roman Empire. Indeed, in certain aspects it did, ushering in a new entity vastly distinct from its predecessor, not least in its military character. While the fundamental categories of military units persisted, a significant transformation occurred in the gear and overall look of the typical Roman combatant. The majority of Roman infantry continued as heavily armored forces engaging in tight formations, yet they now wielded a broader arsenal than previously, encompassing spears, lengthy swords, diverse javelins, and formidable darts, occasionally supplemented by specialized arms such as clubs and battle axes. Light infantry contingents, such as archers, remained widespread, while cavalry ascended in prominence, now incorporating a far greater array of specialized formations than before, including mounted archers and formidable, heavily armored cataphracts. However, the paramount distinction of this emergent 4th and 5th century army lay in its operational methodology. The fundamental organizational shift meant its divisions were no longer delineated by citizenship. Instead, they were now categorized by their specific military functions. The initial branch of the army remained deployed along the frontier, predominantly identified as Limitanei, whereas the other division, the Comitatenses, constituted mobile field armies, primarily positioned further inland and perpetually poised to deploy and bolster imperiled regions or repel any usurpers, a threat that had grown disturbingly frequent. Indeed, the imperative to dissuade adversaries served as the genuine genesis of the Comitatenses. Naturally, in earlier times, Rome possessed no dedicated field armies. Any forces required for civil conflicts or campaigns had to be drawn from frontier garrisons, a practice that severely compromised border security. Mirroring other significant transformations within the Roman Empire, the establishment of a field army was no sudden event, but rather a sustained evolution unfolding across an entire century. It is highly arguable that the earliest manifestation of this phenomenon emerged as early as the late 2nd century AD, when Septimius Severus boldly defied established military conventions by deploying a legion, the Second Parthica, directly within Italy. This strategic placement afforded the emperor immediate and formidable access to a mobile strategic reserve, ready to be unleashed in military campaigns or to decisively quell any burgeoning threats to his imperial authority. The mid-3rd century also bore witness to the emergence of yet another instance of a dynamic mobile field army. Emperor Gallienus meticulously forged a distinct cavalry contingent, strategically positioning it within the vital city of Mediolanum, ensuring an immediate and potent response to any unfolding crisis. Yet, a shroud of uncertainty hangs over whether Gallienus's successors chose to uphold the existence of this specialized cavalry force in the slightest. However, a far more profound and unequivocally significant transformation was yet to unfold. This pivotal shift involved Gallienus's decisive expulsion of senators from military commands, culminating in the complete supplanting of the venerable senatorial commanders or legates of the legions by equestrian prefects, a practice destined to become the entrenched norm throughout the late empire. The foundational, tangible beginnings of the field army truly materialized during the transformative reign of the formidable reformer Diocletian in the late 3rd century, amidst his countless other sweeping changes, such as the rigorous enforcement of increased conscription and the meticulous restoration of frontier fortifications. Diocletian himself was perpetually attended by his own formidable personal army, known as the Sacra Comitatus *, a fact powerfully corroborated by the tombstone of an esteemed member of this elite contingent, Valerius Triumpius Lanierius of the 11th Claudia. This dedicated bodyguard contingent undeniably served as a profound wellspring of inspiration for the burgeoning field armies of the later imperial era. It was ultimately during the illustrious reign of Constantine the Great in the early 4th century that the late Roman army was definitively and formally brought into being. Constantine, building upon Diocletian's foundational reforms, meticulously restructured the army, formally segregating it into the Limitanei serving as steadfast frontier units, and the Comitatenses dynamic mobile field units. Both divisions crucially incorporated naval components tasked with the vital duties of providing transportation and safeguarding the empire's intricate network of rivers and surrounding seas. Beyond the structure of this regular army, a new echelon of imperial guard units now emerged, destined to perpetually attend the emperor, thereby supplanting the venerable Praetorian Guard of antiquity. These elite formations bore the names scholae palatinae alongside troops designated as protectors and domestici. However, it is probable that the latter two serve primarily as staff colleagues for officers rather than constituting authentic military units in constant attendance upon the emperor. Let us now delve into an exploration of the visual spectacle and operational structure that this newly forged army would have presented. Foremost among these, in terms of both innovation and prestige, stood the dynamic mobile field units, or Comitatenses, whose very appellation stemmed from comitatus signifying an entourage or retinue. These forces were meticulously organized into distinct regional field armies, typically commanded by an officer bearing the esteemed title of Magister whose authority was further underscored by a panoply of additional titles reflecting his seniority, geographical domain, and the specific field army under his command. Other distinguished commanders bore the title of comes leading either Comitatenses armies that were generally of a lesser scale than those under the magistri or serving instead as integral components of the Limitanei staff. A select contingent of Comitatenses likely held in high esteem were consolidated into formidable Praesental armies operating solely under the direct authority of the emperor or his most trusted subordinate and strategically encamped in close proximity to the imperial capitals. In stark contrast to the Principate, where the bulk of the army was predominantly deployed along the empire's distant frontiers, the Comitatenses were strategically positioned deeper within the provinces, finding their billets within the bustling confines of major cities. Yet even these encampments lack permanence, frequently shifting their locations across various territories. The strategic rationale underpinning these mobile forces aimed to rectify the relative inflexibility previously observed within the Principate's army. The deployment of these forces directly into cities instead of traditional fortified strongholds clearly signaled Rome's growing difficulty in sustaining the necessary military infrastructure. Regarding troop composition, the Comitatenses comprised legions, each now numbering merely around 1,000 soldiers. Such a reduced strength might have already represented a standard size for legionary units during Diocletian's era, period when legions were routinely divided into distinct detachments to confront various emerging threats. Consequently, the alteration in a legion's official strength probably stemmed directly from these numerous detachments operating independently from their parent formations for such extended periods that they essentially evolved into self-contained units, a status subsequently formalized. The Comitatenses also incorporated cavalry formations, known as either equites comi or comites, each typically numbering around 500 troopers. These units retained the title of vexillatio, a designation that, during the Principate, had referred to a legionary detachment but was now clearly reassigned exclusively to cavalry. Certain highly esteemed field units, encompassing both cavalry and infantry, bore the additional honorific of palatinae. This title, derived from Rome's Palatine Hill, signified their exceptionally elevated standing. Among these elite formations emerged a novel class of infantry, the auxilia palatinae, who appeared to function as highly adaptable forces. They demonstrated superior versatility, capable of serving effectively as both heavy and light infantry, and typically comprised around 500 soldiers. The army's secondary division consisted of the frontier forces, or Limitanei, who were predominantly commanded by officers bearing the title of dukes, though occasionally by comes. The Limitanei frequently carry the stigma of being poorly equipped, inferior militia when contrasted with the field armies, perception largely fueled by their diminished status and prestige. Nevertheless, this prevailing notion proves entirely unfounded. In reality, the Limitanei were full-time professional soldiers, mirroring the Comitatenses, exhibiting virtually no disparity in their skills or equipment. Further evidence for this lies in the fact that numerous Limitanei units either provided support to field armies during campaigns or were themselves smoothly integrated into the field army, adopting the new designation of pseudo-Comitatenses. The primary responsibility of the Limitanei involved patrolling and policing the provinces situated along the empire's extensive frontier, as well as garrisoning the many fortifications scattered throughout these regions. A significant number of these fortifications, alongside their adjacent settlements, served as their localized command centers. Given their role closely mirrored that of the Principate's army, Limitanei units exhibited a far greater degree of continuity from that era. Indeed, most legions from that earlier period maintained their service within the Limitanei, as did, quite clearly, all of the former auxiliary units. This stood in stark contrast to the Comitatenses, whose formations were predominantly newly organized and designated. Consequently, the Limitanei possessed a diverse diverse array of unit titles, a direct outcome of their extended developmental history. Formations bearing the title numeri likely represented the ancient units of allied irregulars retaining their original designation but now fully integrated as regular forces. In a similar vein, numerous units bearing the titles Allegio, Cohors, and Ala trace their lineage directly back to the legions, auxiliary cohorts, and cavalry alae of the Principate. Concurrently, a significant number of fresh units of these very types were also established during the late imperial era. Furthermore, it's worth remembering that units designated as Allegio also served within the Comitatenses, possessing a distinctly elevated status compared to the legions assigned to the Limitanei. Moreover, the late empire witnessed the emergence of several entirely new unit classifications. The units bearing the enigmatic titles Milites, Limits, Gentis, and Auxilia possessed names that were far more obscure, failing to clearly denote any specific troop classification. Regarding cavalry, they deployed formations known as equites and cunei, with the prestigious comites designation being exclusively reserved for the mobile field armies. Collectively, these formations constituted the frontier units, each typically numbering around 500 soldiers, with the notable exception of the legions, which likely boasted a strength of 1,000. Every single one of these units, whether from the Comitatenses or the Limitanei, operated under the command of officers bearing distinct titles, tribunos, praefectus, and praepositus. To truly grasp the intricate and often perplexing system and organization of this late Roman army, we shall now turn our attention to a frontier province, such as Moesia Secunda, and meticulously ascertain its complete military might. Consistent with other frontier deployments, the command of these forces within this particular province was entrusted to a seasoned senior commander. Bearing the esteemed title of dux, a rank that had evolved significantly since the Principate, he held sway over a formidable force of 2 legions, strategically fragmented into numerous detachments dispersed throughout the province. We readily identify these units by their venerable names, the ancient 1st Italica and 11th Claudia legions of the Principate, which had been garrisoned there for countless years. However, following the sweeping reforms, they had now been meticulously disaggregated into distinct, smaller formations of Allegio and cohorts. Beyond these, the dux's authority extended to 3 infantry cohorts, seemingly direct descendants of the ancient auxiliary cohorts, alongside 7 cunei cavalry, and a further 10 enigmatically named units designated as milites. In their entirety, these diverse units bore the collective designation of Limitanei, bestowing upon the dux's forces a formidable theoretical strength of approximately 12,000 men. Observe closely how certain units are positioned remarkably far inland, extending even into the provinces of Rhodope and Thracia. This compellingly demonstrates that not every Limitanei formation was stationed directly on the frontier, and crucially, the deployments of the army's various branches were far from static. Providing crucial support to these frontier troops was a proximate field army, commanded by the formidable Magister Militum per Thracias, whose primary operational base was frequently the city of Marcianopolis within the very same province. His formidable army comprised 21 Legio units and 7 Vexillatio cavalry, 3 of which proudly held the prestigious palatinae grade. This impressive composition granted the field army a theoretical strength of approximately 25,000 troops. In stark contrast to the former army of the Principate, the deployment of this particular field army, whether for engaging in military campaigns or internal civil conflicts, would prove significantly more challenging for external adversaries to detect, ensuring that the routine activities and patrols of the frontier forces remained entirely unaffected by their temporary absence. Moreover, the 2 formidable Praesental armies of the east were typically garrisoned at Constantinople, each boasting a theoretical strength of approximately 21,000 soldiers. The premier army was composed of 6 elite Legio Palatina and 18 Auxilia Palatina for its infantry component, complemented by 12 of Vexillatio cavalry, 5 of which were of the distinguished Palatina grade. The second army possessed a strikingly similar composition. It's crucial to understand that the official paper strengths of these units seldom reflected reality, frequently operating at diminished capacity, sometimes drastically reduced by half or even more. Broadly speaking, we can discern the comprehensive approach to border control within this province, an approach largely mirrored in the others. Should an external assault occur, the Limitanei would be the foremost to confront it, either completely driving back the incursion or holding the line sufficiently for the Comitatenses to arrive, after which the enemy would ideally be vanquished in decisive open combat or through cunning irregular tactics. We can now more fully grasp the catastrophic impact of the Battle of Adrianople in 378, which severely debilitated vital components of the Thracian and Praesental armies, gravely hindering subsequent Roman efforts against the Goths. Yet, within the late Roman defensive framework, another significant benefit emerged. Surpassing the era of the Principate, all major cities had by this time erected formidable fortifications and walls of their own, mirroring the grandeur of Rome's Aurelian walls. Considering the challenges faced by the Goths and other adversaries in executing successful sieges, these types of vulnerabilities in defense could still be counteracted by the multitude of strongholds along the frontiers. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, such a profound transformation in the army's deployment strategy met with considerable opposition. The late 5th century historian Zosimus, for instance, vehemently condemned Constantine's forsaking of the empire's established doctrine of massing military might along the borders, where it had previously intercepted intercepted invaders swiftly and with overwhelming power, and was able to mount formidable offensive thrusts of its own. Constantine, however, dismantled this vital security by relocating the vast majority of soldiers from frontier garrisons and stationing them in cities utterly devoid of defensive requirements, thereby stripping those vulnerable to barbarian incursions of all protection, and burdening peaceful cities with such an overwhelming military presence that many were completely deserted by their populace. Notwithstanding these criticisms, however, we have already observed that the Romans possessed compelling justifications for embracing this novel approach. Its efficacy is most powerfully demonstrated by its enduring stability throughout most of the 4th and 5th centuries, coupled with the army's unwavering success in military campaigns. To bolster their military forces, the Romans also occasionally enlisted auxiliary barbarian formations, primarily referred to as Foederati. While predominantly assembled for temporary service and then dissolved upon the conclusion of a campaign, some were integrated enduringly into the army and subsequently accorded the same status as any regular unit. A compelling illustration of this, found within Ammianus's chronicles, was a unit of the Alemanni, a Germanic tribe originating from beyond the Rhine, deployed to Britain in 372 AD. They were led by a noble from their own ranks, named Freomeritus, who held the esteemed Roman title of tribune. Such units would initially possess a unique ethnic identity and distinctive equipment, but would gradually become visually identical to other Roman regulars over time, particularly as fresh recruits inexorably supplanted the originals. The extant evidence strongly indicates that these types of Foederati were overwhelmingly integrated into the Comitatenses. Beyond the Foederati, numerous foreign enlistees from beyond the empire's borders were also permitted to serve in the regular legions and were historically charged with barbarizing the Roman military with allegedly untrustworthy troops. This truly captivating subject absolutely merits its own dedicated video. While we'll delve into this further down the line, it's crucial to remember that during the 4th and 5th centuries, the vast majority of imperial forces were undeniably Roman. Moreover, acts of betrayal by barbarian recruits were exceedingly uncommon, and therefore should never be viewed as a grave threat to the army's integrity. Apart from the significant rise of dedicated field armies, the fundamental tenets of Roman strategy steadfastly endured, largely unchanged. Aggressive incursions into hostile lands persisted relentlessly, now with an intensified focus on debilitating adversaries through devastating raids or crushing them in direct confrontation. Remarkably, even the very tactics employed in battle saw little significant alteration. Naturally, subtle variations did emerge, driven by evolving equipment and the increasing deployment of highly specialized cavalry units. Yet, the formidable heavy infantry would invariably be positioned at the heart of the formation, bolstered by a crucial second line held in reserve, while diverse light-armed troops provided essential support, and the vital cavalry forces would be strategically deployed to fiercely safeguard the vulnerable flanks. A pervasive misconception paints the Roman army of this era as having regressed to a mere spear-armed phalanx, but this is nothing short of another egregious oversimplification and enduring myth surrounding the late empire. Indeed, meticulous examination of our historical sources reveals no indication whatsoever of any radical abandonment of established methodologies. Therefore, one can assert that the Roman army of the 4th and 5th centuries, while undeniably echoing its more renowned Principate-era counterpart by simply perpetuating long-standing practices, was simultaneously profoundly distinct in numerous other aspects, having emerged as the profound culmination of an extensive period of relentless evolution and crucial adaptation. Yet, despite all its profound transformations, the formidable new imperial army steadfastly maintained its highly organized structure, a truly disciplined force, one capable of resolutely holding its position against any foreign adversary, even amidst the most profound periods of immense crisis and undeniable decline. We are currently pouring our efforts into crafting many more compelling videos exploring the Roman army, which will be unveiled to you very soon, so please make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss out on anything. My sincerest gratitude is extended to all our incredible patrons for their invaluable support in bringing this video to life. Crafted purely for your ultimate enjoyment, we warmly invite you to consider joining them and having your name forever etched into our future videos. I genuinely look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next video.